Good morning. Welcome to Healing Life Fellowship Church. We are a non-denominational church, spiritual church, and I am Reverend Lydia Janacek. How many of us have felt or experienced that we didn't fit with our family, dynamics, or life? Had too many obstacles to overcome, or there was one mountain put in front of us after another. And it seems like we can't believe life could be any harder. How about when you feel you're going up the ladder of life and you get up two rungs and push back down 4? Whether it be financial, emotionally, or physical. We can lose our faith and our trust at the time we don't believe we have anyone on our side and we feel alone. Today, I'm going to talk about believing and being grateful for always having the belief we're not alone, and to be grateful for what we do have. We need to remember we chose the family we're in. Even if we were adopted or lived in foster care, or our grandparents or someone else stepped in to parenting role, or we lost everything due to illness, or worse, we lost a loved one. We chose all of our lessons to be learned in this lifetime. Spirituality teaches us there are no coincidences in life. Everything happens when it is supposed to. Yet if we look at our glass half empty, we can't grow spiritually. We have to start to become grateful for what we have, even when it feels like a mountain is in front of us to climb. Understand there's just lessons we signed up to experience. Try and see things from a different perspective. See the wonderful things that you did learn and reflect back on the good memories. Be grateful for those in your life. If there isn't anything that you can take away from an experience that was good, and you're still in that state of frustration, try and put yourself in the other person's shoes. Were they treated badly as a child? Did they repeat history from what they were taught? Was there a possibility that you never looked at things from their perspective? In any case, when we step outside of the box of anger, resentment, and judgment, and step into having gratitude and believing we are all children of God, we're here on earth at this time to experience things possibly we may not have gotten from another lifetime, or to be on the other end of the experience. Maybe in another lifetime you weren't the greatest parent, or had substance abuse, or took it out on your family. So this lifetime, you wanted to learn the lesson on the other side of the coin. It is so easy to forget God's presence and power when we face uncertainty and difficult times. Our faith falters, and we doubt that God is with us. Sometimes even doubting that He is real and who He says that He is. God knew that we would struggle with disbelief and has spoken reassuring words to us through the Bible. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 31, it states, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and not be faint." We also need to remember that we have free will. God will never take that away from us, but yet we believe when things seem difficult or when we lose someone, especially if it was not expected from a choice they made or an unseen accident that happened. We all have experienced someone taken too early in life, or someone loses a small child. We get angry instead of understanding. This is when we need to be grateful for the time we did have and believe we're not alone. That God is carrying us through our hardest times. That's not to say we're not going to be sad or heartbroken, but go back to what you had and cherish those memories. The The Footprints in the Sand poem is a perfect example on this. I'd like to read it to you. One night I dreamed a dream as I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed 2 steps of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my Lord. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and the saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me, so I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints, and I don't understand why. When I needed you the most, you would leave me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never, ever, during your trials and tribulations, when you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. With faith and believing, we're not alone. We can have gratitude. In every lesson, there is something to be grateful for. Sometimes it can be that the lesson taught us what not to do or say to another. It can teach us forgiveness, kindness, compassion, and wisdom. It can teach us not to judge another and to recognize we're not perfect and we have more to learn here. If we really are open, the lessons will always bring us back to our source, God. When we come to the conclusion that God is the I am, and remember each one of us is a part of the I am. We are a small version of God. So bringing God in our lives all the way is finding true happiness. Someone once said, happiness is not getting what you want, but accepting what you get. Gratitude is the cure for every moment of dis-ease. I'm going to say that again. Gratitude is the cure for every moment of dis-ease. It is the fastest way to dissolve anxiety, to heal disappointment, to replace sadness and happiness. It replaces negative thoughts, and it is connecting energy to our source. When we become grateful, even for things that we may not want or feel we deserve at a given moment, when things are going south, or in our perspective, they went south, stop and recognize there is something here we need to see, feel, and experience. Be open and be grateful for whatever it is that is placed in front of us, and believe there is a reason you're in that moment, even if we don't understand it. Remember, there are no coincidences. Try to embrace it, knowing that every moment in life is an opportunity for you to look inward and to declare, express, and experience the divine within yourselves. I have a poem in my office that hangs on the wall, and I'd like to read it to you. It reads, "The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think, say, or do. It is more important than giftedness or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home. The remarkable thing is, we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for the day. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90 on how you react to it. That was written by Charles Swindoll. When we realize there will always be another mountain to climb is when we start to see what the mountain is, there to teach or to show us when we move forward, then start to be grateful for the lesson and embrace that moment. A lot of times we cause ourselves to go into a negative spiral, downward direction by thinking we're not good enough or can't cope. That's when we need to look within, believe with every fiber, you're not alone. God is right there with us every step of the way. I have a client and someone I consider a very good friend that has joined our spiritual family. She has had so many losses in her life, and I am inspired to say she's come from a negative place to a more positive place. That's not to say it hasn't been hard or that she hasn't completed her lesson yet, or even that there isn't more healing to be done. She walks every day, miles and miles, to cope with those losses. She has gotten closer to nature and to God being out there on those trails. She sees deer and owls and rabbits and many other animals. She has felt her loved ones, talked to them, and got answers from them while on those trails. Yes, her losses are there, and she is still trying to cope with those losses. To hear her share with us the beauty she sees when she's out in the nature with God's creatures, we can see her eyes light up. I'm not even sure she realizes she's healing and also getting closer to God because of her losses. She shares all the time how much she appreciates the nature and how it has helped her. So even through her loss and her pain, she is grateful for all those things. It's brought her enjoyment through the long walks and the deer and the beauty she didn't appreciate before. She sees it now. I see a difference in her. When she thinks she's empty and lost, I see her more compassionate and forgiving. I see her growing spiritually, leaps and bounds. She has made more comments about not judging others, and not to say this hasn't made her feel things she never wanted to feel, but it also made her grow. It's teaching her forgiveness in herself. Sometimes we have the hardest time forgiving ourselves for not doing enough, when in reality, we did what we were supposed to do. And it was their lesson to do the rest. Try and see all you did for another soul. Be grateful for helping and just to have them as a gift in your life, and you in theirs. And what they brought to you. Be grateful for what you had with them and how it changed your life. Circumstances sometimes are out of our control by others' choices. We can spend lifetime trying to find answers as to why someone did, said, or reacted to something. Or we can understand it was their journey and their perspective. No one can change another person's truth, even if it's not reality. It's their truth. When we believe there are no mistakes, everything does happen the way it's supposed to, for us to learn and embrace and trust the situation at hand. There are no failures, just lessons. We need to know we're loved and we're right where we're supposed to be in our life at this time. I know we all have so much to be grateful for. I had a great childhood. I have two wonderful parents and tons of great memories. Unfortunately, we lost both our parents very close together, and they were very ill at the end of their lives. My family and my brother's family can look back and know we have all those great memories to hold on to. Do we miss them? Every single day. I get up every morning and I thank God and am forever grateful for them and all the wonderful times that I had with them. I had wonderful vacations from my time I was a child all the way up until probably a few years before they both passed. Sunday dinners and how we were there to help, and they were always there to help us. And how grateful I am for them teaching us to be kind, compassionate people, good parents, and to embrace life. They taught us to trust and that we were never alone. That God was in our life, even if it wasn't the traditional ways. My dad would say, you could pray anywhere. And I mean anywhere. Didn't matter where you were at. My mother would say, God is in here. And they will answer all your prayers. You just have to ask. One of the things that she would always say to me as I got older was, this too shall pass. She even found a book that said, this too shall pass on the front cover. And it was all things about quit worrying about. She would say, time heals, Lydia. Believe. Believe God is with you. When my dad was sick back in 1990, he was diagnosed with end-stage lung cancer. And the doctors told us we had less than a year to live. Go home, get your things in order, Sam. My dad said no. And we went to another doctor. He wasn't giving up. He had faith that we would find a doctor that would cure him. A lot of prayers were answered. We went to another doctor, and they took his lung out. The cancer came back twice in his spine. So we found another doctor, and we kept praying. He did get cancer-free. He fought for a long time. My father passed in 2016, cancer-free. Believing and having faith got him through. It got us all through. When life is an uphill battle and we think we can't cope and get past the pain, if we turn to God and trust and go the distance with faith and gratitude in any situation, whether it's illness, loss of a loved one, worry of financial support, broken heart from a relationship, feeling alone, life sometimes throws us curveballs. That's expected. We all experience life difficulties. Depending on the magnitude of the struggle will depend on how we're willing to allow ourselves to get closer to God. Believe He is with you. Letting go, letting God heal you. The wheel of process will go on, but we get through it with a proper perspective and turning to God and believing we're never alone and finding something to be grateful for. As we head into Thanksgiving next week, think about how much each one of us has to be grateful for. It's been a tough couple of years with COVID and being locked down. But think about how much time you got to spend reflecting on life. Or maybe you were able to spend quality time with family. Some cleaned out their houses. They were purging. We can look at it as a very difficult or find a good thing that came out of it. We need to look at life that way. Even when we lost someone to a passing, we need to remember we're all here for the time that we agreed upon, that we'll all be reunited again. Take your memories and be grateful we had them for as long as we did. It doesn't mean you can't be sad. We all grieve. But recognize the gift that you have with them in our hearts, and they're at peace. Let's all try over the course of the next week and thereafter to change our thoughts to believing and knowing we walk with God. With the holiday season here, let's be grateful for all our blessings, embrace life to its fullest, trust and surrender to your journey, and the lessons placed in front of us. In the Bible, it states in the book of Timothy, chapter 4, verse 4 through 5, for everything God is to be rejected if it is received with thanksgiving, because it is consecrated by the word of God and prayer. In the book Acts, chapter 24, verse 3, it says, in every way and everywhere we accept this with all gratitude. Sometimes it's hard to be grateful. It's a work in progress, especially when our hearts have been broken. Remember, when it seems the hardest in life, it's one of those lessons, and we need to believe even more. That is the part that is the test. Trust and be grateful for all that is good, and even the not so good that is teaching us something. Try to find things every day to be grateful for. Pay it forward. I love to go to Panera Bread and pay for the guy behind me. Do something nice for a stranger. Watch how kindness spreads and how grateful they are. Tell someone how much you appreciate them. How many of us don't do that to our own family? Even for small things. Spend time with someone that is alone. Be grateful they're in your life. None of us is promised tomorrow. Live for today. We all have moments when things often go unnoticed or unappreciated because we think they're either insignificant or we take them for granted. We forget to express gratitude, or we simply allow the opportunity for things to pass by. This is especially true for all daily countless blessings we receive from God. Like the sun is shining, we woke up this morning. We rush around often attempting to fit 30 hours into 24 hours in a day. That would be me. With our crazy schedules, in today's world, we tend to overlook all the wonderful things God places right in front of us, that is, throughout our day. We need to stop and smell the roses. Listen to the sound of laughter around us. Appreciate the cool, crisp air, even if this isn't the cooler weather, isn't our favorite. It's not mine, but I'm still glad it's not any colder than it is. Meditate. Give your mental state a break. Clear your mind. Gratitude helps us value the small things we often take for granted because we start paying attention to the good things in our life. There is a story told by author Max Lucado, I believe it's pronounced, in the book of The Eye of the Storm. Every Friday evening at sunset, old Ed walked to the end of his favorite pier, and with a bucket of shrimp clutched to his bony hand, within moments, he was surrounded by screeching and squawking seagulls. Ed would toss the shrimp to the hungry birds, all the while saying, with a smile, "Thank you, thank you." In a few minutes, the bucket would be empty. But Ed would remain staring out at the ocean, lost in thought. Eddie Rickenbacker was the founder of Eastern Airlines in the United States. In the First World War, he was a pilot and became America's first ace. I'm hoping I can say this correctly. For those of you that don't know what an ace is in the military, it's an aviator, thank you, credited with shooting down 5 or more enemy aircrafts during an aerial combat. In the Second World War, he was an instructor and a military advisor, and he flew missions with combat pilots. On one of his flying missions across the Pacific, he and 7-member crew crashed into the ocean. Miraculously, all men survived and climbed into a life raft. Captain Rickenbacker and his crew floated for days on the rough, shark-infested waters of the Pacific. In the blazing sun, by the 8th day, their rations ran out. They had no food, no water. They were hundreds of miles from land, and no one knew where they were or even if they were alive. They needed a miracle, and so they prayed together. They tried to sleep, but all they could hear was the slap of the waves against the raft. Suddenly, Eddie felt something land on the top of his cap. It was a seagull. Eddie sat perfectly still, and then, with a flash of his hand and a squawk from the seagull. He grabbed it and wrung its neck. He tore the feathers off, and he and his starving crew members made a meal of it, a slight meal for 8 men. They used the intestines for bait. With it, they caught fish, which gave them food and more bait, and the cycle continued. When that simple survival technique, they were able to endure the rigors of the sea until they were found and rescued after 24 days at sea. Eddie was a true American hero who felt he owed his life to the seagulls. Eddie lived many years beyond that ordeal of being lost at sea, but never forgot the sacrifice of that first life-saving seagull. And he never stopped saying thank you. That's why almost every Friday night he would walk to the end of the pier with a bucket full of shrimp and a heart full of gratitude. We tend to live for the big moments. Life has a way of teaching us what's really important. Sometimes we don't listen to our gut. We just do what we want to get the lesson that we don't want to try to value the small things and listen to our intuitions. Count your blessings. Each day, to have an attitude of gratitude means to express thankfulness, appreciation in all areas of our life, for the big as well as the small. Gratitude is one of the easiest things we can do in life. As we focus on gratitude, we find ourselves closer to God. It is a gift for both the giver and the receiver. We are in turn blessed for giving. We all need to be like old Ed. Smile and thank you and believe you're strong and kind and that each one of us has God in us and lets us shine. Thank you.